right, so let's get started for today. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our weekly 30-minute webinar for engineers by engineers. My name is Dan Schmidt, systems engineer here at Variphy for about 5 years, and I'll be your host for today's session. Today, we're joined with Victor Verba, and in today's webinar, we're going to cover Hunt Group Utilization Reports, which focuses on the use of the new Hunt Group Description component. Just so everyone knows, today's session will expand on from our last Hunt Group reporting session done a few weeks ago. At a later time, if you want to view the contents of that last session, you can find the recording on our webinar's website page. So please feel free to have a look at that when we're done. All right, so just a quick agenda for today. We're going to start off with a quick overview of our company and what we do. We'll then jump into a live demo where Victor will guide us through the new Hunt Group components. We'll then pause for some Q&A and get some of your questions answered. Just as a note, if you have any questions at all during the demo, please present those questions in the Q&A panel in the bottom right hand of the WebEx screen. Please do not type them in the chat, as we may not see those in the chat module. After Q&A, we'll reward one lucky winner a $50 Amazon gift card, so hang around to see if you've won that. So just a quick overview of Variphy. Variphy is the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco collaboration. We provide industry-leading CDR reporting and call analytics, customizable dashboards and widgets, CCX reporting, remote phone control, change management, and others. But in today's session, we're really going to be focusing on the CDR reporting and call analytics, specifically touching on the Hunt Group capabilities. If anyone does have any questions on any of the other modules, we could most certainly take those offline and get those addressed for you all. Before we do start today's demo, again, we want to announce that Variphy does now offer a new service that provides a managed consulting service to our customers. Variphy's SE team will be engaged on a one-on-one basis to remotely provide additional consulting, unassisted reporting, dashboarding, configuration, and system monitoring assistance and different things of the like. This is a new service that provides a dedicated Variphy SE to do all the heavy lifting for you if you simply don't have the time to do so. So if you are interested for more information, please contact us and we'll be glad to speak with you and give you more of that info. All right, so that's enough of the slide deck and the talk. Let's get into it. Victor, I'll hand it back to you to show us a little bit about the new Hunt Group utilization capabilities.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Danimal. Hey, everybody, and thank you guys for coming to hang out with me today. So the purpose of today's session, as Dan had explained, is we're going to kind of walk through how to build some general Hunt Group reports. We're going to take advantage of some of the new features within Variphy. And Dan, I'm not sure if you're able to make me the presenter there. I can go ahead and get my screen shared out.
Yep, there you go. Sorry about that.
Excellent. No worries. So we're going to walk through some simple kind of standard Hunt Group reports that most people want to see. We're also going to take a look at some of the new features, one of them being the Hunt Group description field that Variphy now has the ability to go ahead and search on as well as summarize on. And we're also going to take a look at how to make some of these reports a little bit more user-friendly for your end users and your general managers. Now, right here popping up on my screen is one of the reports we're going to walk through and show you guys how to build. This is basically a list of some of the most pertinent things we see with Hunt Group reporting, number of calls being presented, number of calls being answered, as well as, basically the durations. Are we talking which Hunt Groups are handling calls the longest, medium, short duration calls? But then with some time, we're going to go ahead and spend a little bit more of a look on how we can actually focus in a little bit more on some specific Hunt Groups, show which departments are maybe grabbing those Hunt Groups, as well as look at some of the detail columns within those Hunt Groups and how to change some of those detail column names, again, to make it just a little bit more user-friendly. So we've got a lot to get to today, so let's go ahead and get started. Let me close these guys out. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop into my history search screen. If you guys have ever worked with me before, you know I love this screen. It's a great way to be able to just kind of do some experimenting to see if I'm going down the right path with the report that I'm building here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and focus in on how do we pull out our Hunt Group calls. Variphy's got several different ways to do that. We can report on the Hunt pilot number. Now, new to 12.2, we can also report the Hunt pilot description. anybody that's worked with me before, they know that I am very fond of the original called party number when we're talking about hunt groups. The reason I personally prefer the original called party number as opposed to the hunt pilot field is that if a call comes into a hunt pilot and it does not get answered, Cisco does not actually tag the hunt pilot number onto that call. So if you're trying to get accurate counts of calls coming in, whether they got answered or didn't get answered, that hunt pilot field can be a little bit misleading because Cisco just doesn't produce as much data there when the call actually never gets picked up at the hunt pilot. So I personally prefer the original called party number because regardless of if that call gets answered or not, it is always going to appear at the hunt pilot as the hunt pilot for that original called party number. So just kind of a little tidbit when you're running some hunt group reports, try that original called party number first. And let's take a look at the results. So for this, I can come in here and I can pick a particular hunt group. This is a hunt pilot number within my system. I could also go ahead and filter based on the hunt pilot description here. Again, this is something that's new to Variphy, and I can come in and type in, starts with an M or starts with the name of a hunt pilot or anything like that. Now, in my case, all my hunt pilots are 5-digit numbers. So I'm just going to kind of leave this guy open, and I'm going to say, show me any call for the previous week, and I'm choosing the week up here at the top right. And I'm going to say, show me any call for the previous week that has a 5-digit number in it. I know for me, again, vast majority of those calls are all going to be hunt pilot numbers. So it's kind of, in my system, it's an easy way to pull back all of my hunt pilots. Now, as you're going to see here, I'm also probably going to get a little information that I don't necessarily want. So one of the things that I have here is, one, yes, my hunt pilot numbers, but unfortunately some of my UCCX triggers are also 5 digits. Now, I could very easily come into Variphy and filter out those UCCX triggers. And just to kind of give you an example of how to go ahead and do that, I could come in and say, my terminating device name does not start with UCCX. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So here I'm just going to go ahead and add an additional filter. Nice thing about this history search screen is I have the ability to go ahead and add those additional filters here. So I'm just going to punch in UCCX, and I'm going to say does not start with. So once I check mark this guy, it's going to make sure that every call I bring back matches both of this criteria. So now what we're going to see is a list of all those 5-digit hunt pilot numbers, but not my UCCX triggers. So again, one way to be able to kind of fine tune some of the information you're bringing back. But one of the reasons I also like this history search screen is that you can kind of see this stuff live as you're running the report, rather than going into a report, running it for some specific days, taking a look at the results, and then coming back and rerunning the report. So now what I've done is very quickly, I've been able to narrow down my hunt groups. I've eliminated all my UCCX transfer calls. So that's one way to be able to bring back some very pertinent information on your hunt pilots. And again, right here, the purpose of this report, I'm looking at all my hunt groups, not just one particular one. We're going to get into that in a second. Now, another thing that I really like to use for hunt groups, there's actually a field off over here that I added to the right called called party pattern usage type. This is a great column because what this is telling you is when somebody calls into your organization, they're going to the called party. In other words, what are they hitting first in your phone system? Now, when you're talking about hunt pilots, this is a great field to be able to narrow down all your hunt pilots because it's going to eliminate some things where, again, I'm running a very general search here for all 5-digit numbers. Doesn't necessarily mean it always came through a hunt pilot or a hunt group or anything like that. So a great field to use if you're trying to generate a report on all those hunt pilots is this called party pattern usage type. So for the purpose of this report and our reports going forward, we're going to go ahead and pick on this guy right here because it is a great way when I'm looking at general information for all my hunt groups. So I'm going to go through and, again, use this history search. I'm just going to get rid of these guys. And I'm going to go ahead and type in called over here. And I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom, and I see my called party pattern usage type. And I'm going to add that filter in there. Now, the nice thing about this is a drop-down field. So you'll have a lot of options. But the nice thing about that is you're not trying to guess what I need to put in here. I can see right there I clearly have hunt pilot, so I can pick on that guy, view my results, and now very easily I've basically just picked on all of my hunt groups. So just a couple different ways to be able to pull back a lot of the same information, but this is a pretty accurate way of being able to pull that information back because those calls are always going to hit a hunt pilot. Now, even if Cisco doesn't put that hunt pilot DN on there because maybe it didn't get answered, as you can see here, we've got some zero duration calls. We still see that as the hunt pilot pattern type. So great way to be able to narrow down some hunt pilots. All right, so now let's go ahead and get started building a report. So this first report we're going to go ahead and build here is going to be for all of our hunt groups. I want to see some good general high-level information on how my hunt groups are handling some of these calls. So right from the history search screen, I'm going to go ahead and hit export. This is taking me into the same exact report building screen as if I went over to my reports repository and I said, let's create a new report. So now that we're here, let's export some of these results and build a report. So I'm just going to call this sample Victor all hunt pilots. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and click Save as Future. Now what I'm doing is I know I saw the criteria I want in the background there in some of the detail. So now I'm actually building a report that I can save so I can schedule it daily, weekly, monthly, and in the future. All right. The next thing we're going to go ahead and do is we'll take a look at our search sets. It just carries over what we had there. That's fantastic. We can also take a look at our call detail. Whatever we have on this background screen is going to fall right into this report. Again, another reason I like to start building some of these reports in that history search because I kind of get to see what I'm working with ahead of time. So next thing we want to do is we're going to go ahead and say, well, what do we want to see? So right now I'm pulling back all of my hunt groups. What do I want to see from a high level from all of my hunt groups? Some pertinent information. I want to see the total call count. Maybe I want to see the average duration and the total duration of each of all calls. Personally, I'm not a big total duration guy, unless I'm maybe looking at some individual users. But when I'm looking at hunt groups in a week type of view, in hourly, it's great. It's nice to be able to say, hey, 45 minutes worth of talk time at a hunt group. But if I'm going to look at this for a week, the total duration of those calls is a pretty large number. So I'm going to remove that guy. It's just a personal preference. Next thing I'm going to go ahead and add here is something called sequence count. This is a great value that I like for hunt groups. So we're going to take a look at this in a little bit more detail, but just to give you a general breakdown, when a call comes into a hunt group, it gets presented to the hunt group. That hunt group can do a lot of different things. One, it could bounce a call and go to some agents where it doesn't get answered and goes back to the hunt group. Well, that's 2 total calls, but it's potentially one sequence of events. So think of this number more as, I really want to get a count of how many calls are coming in, not how many are necessarily being presented over and over again or multiple times to the hunt group. So, another good example of this is, let's say a call comes into a hunt group and gets answered over by Stacy. She talks to somebody and they transfer it over to Victor. Well, let's say I transfer that call back into the hunt group. Well, that is 2 sequences because it got transferred to the hunt group multiple times. It's also 2 or 3 total call counts, because as Victor transfers that call back into the hunt group, you're going to see a call from Victor into the hunt group, but then also my transfer leg into the hunt group. So it's actually 3 total calls, but just 2 sequences. So that sequence count's pretty important. We're going to see a little bit of that when we look at detail. So other normal values we want to see is answered count. Everybody wants to know how many calls were answered. That's always a very big value. It's also a good value when you're looking at total number of calls being presented to the hunt group. Abandoned calls. And I like to add voicemail. Not every hunt group has the opportunity or is set up to be able to transfer a call to a voicemail. But I've seen a lot of environments where, after a certain amount of rings or after a certain amount of time in a queue, the call will go to a general voicemail box. So I always like to add that guy in there just to see if that's taking place. Other things I like to add in here, absolutely total ring duration or average ring duration, and call duration is always a good one. So I always want to have total average call duration in there because that's just going to kind of give me an idea on average how long my agents are talking. Now, other great fields that I like to be able to add in here are some of the long, medium, and short duration calls. Personally, when I'm dealing with larger sets of data, I like the percentages. They just make more sense. Whoops, I added the wrong one in there. And let's go ahead and add long duration calls in there. And there we go. So I personally like percentages. It's just easier when you're looking at larger numbers. If I'm looking at 1,000 calls, what is 42 out of 1,000 percentage-wise? So, just something to keep in mind, but you can absolutely do counts in there and percentages if you wanted to. Nice thing about this is now we have some percentages in here. We can actually set up what those values are. So what is a short duration call? Well, let's say anything that's 15 seconds or less. What's a long duration call? Depending on your call center, you get the flexibility to go ahead and set this. And in my case, I'm going to go ahead and set this to 5 minutes. All right, so now I'm going to basically identify which calls are short, which calls are long, and anything in between there is medium. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is, now that we have that, we've got a very high level over here. So this is going to show us out of all our hunt groups some total call counts for the time that we specified. But the next thing we want to do is, well, I also want to see the breakdown of each individual individual hunt group. So you could absolutely build a search set that's going to have 10 hunt groups in there, or 5 hunt groups, or 10 hunt group descriptions, but it's a lot of work that is unnecessary. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to pop over to our grouping section. I always refer to grouping as a second layer of summary. My first layer of summary is how many calls are coming into my hunt pilots as total in a whole. But now I want to see a little bit more. I want to actually be able to see some of those hunt pilot numbers maybe. But when you're sending something off to general managers or people that don't know the phone system, hunt pilot numbers are not super relevant. So one of the new features we have here within Variphy is the ability to summarize those off the hunt pilot description. This is a great way of, again, being able to get additional information to your end users that makes sense. All right, so I'm going to summarize this not only on all the calls coming into hunt pilots, but each individual hunt pilot. So from there, what do I want to see? I want to see the total number of calls each hunt pilot is taking. Again, I'm going to pick on that sequence account because I want to be able to see essentially how many singular calls may have been presented to that hunt group, not how many times it got transferred for the same call into that hunt group. And of course, we're always going to want to see things like, you know, the answered call count or answered percent. You're going to want to see things like abandoned. Let me go ahead. There's our abandoned, there's our answered, and you know, you could always do counts or you can do percentages. It really just comes down to preference. So we'll go ahead and move those guys up. Let me get this guy up here. And so now we're looking at the sequence of events. We've got our voicemail in there. We've got our total average ring duration, total call duration. It's up to you if you want that. Again, I gave you my opinion on that. When you're looking at larger numbers, it could be a little bit more difficult. And what we're going to do next is we're going to scroll down a little bit, and I'm going to show you where total call duration may fit in a little bit better. So then I've got some just general, let's see, we've got our ring duration, average call duration in there. You know what? We also want to be able to see some of those short, medium, and long duration calls. And because we're looking at this as a total, again, I'm going to pick those percentages. I just like percentages better at bigger numbers. I'm not a math guy. So now that we've got that, we can see our total hunt group. We get to see each individual hunt group. But I also love period over period analytics. I'm a big fan of it. It really lets me know how we're doing on a day-to-day or hour-to-hour basis. And that's maybe a little bit more where some of that total call duration and total ring time can come into play. So we're going to add a little additional statistics in here. So in that grouping tab that I'm still working on, I said, let's break this down by hunt pilot description. I said for each individual hunt pilot, these are the metrics I want to be able to see. Now I'm going to add a little bit more. I'm going to say out of all those hunt pilots, I want to be able to see some, and we're going to go day-a-week breakdowns. I want to see a day-a-week breakdown of each individual hunt pilot. So each day of the week, what was the total number of calls that came in? Maybe each day of the week, of course, I like that sequence count, especially when I'm dealing with hunt pilots or hunt groups. I want to see the total average call and ring duration each day of the week. Of course, you know, you're always going to want those answered percentages, answered, abandoned, and voicemail percentages. Great things. You're always going to want that during a hunt group type report. And maybe your calls can't go to voicemail, so that's easily excluded. And again, I like to see those long duration, medium, and short duration counts, so I can see which hunt groups maybe have longer call volumes or do not. Now, the nice thing about this report is we're really kind of building a template here that we're going to be able to use for various purposes. So now I've got some pretty general information here that's really going to tell me everything that I need to know about my hunt groups. Now, this carried all the detail over because that's what I had in the back screen. In this particular report, it's pretty high-level report. I'm actually going to turn the detail off in this report, and we're going to circle back to that in a second, so don't worry about that. Cradle to grave is turned off because I don't have detail on there. I chose to turn on and save this report. So now I've got my sample Victor all hunt pilots report over here. It's created. It's got some good template information in there for me. I'm going to kick this guy off. We're going to go ahead and run this guy for the previous week, and we're going to take a look at our results. Now, basically what we're building here is a great report that you can send to anybody that's going to give you each individual hunt group breakdown, but also total volume for all your hunt groups. So Let me blow this guy up a little bit. So I've got my search. We can change all of these names so that way they represent better for your organization. I've got my total call count, my sequence call counts, average calls, total duration, my short duration percentages, and this is a little clunky here. And we're going to talk about that in a second, because what's a short duration, medium duration call? If you're sending this to report to somebody, now you've got to go back and explain what some of these fields are. We don't want to have to do that. Same thing with total call count, sequence call count, and there's some fields in here that can probably use a little adjusting, and we're going to take a look at that right now. So now that we've built this report, we can see overall how many calls are coming into all of our hunt groups. We also get to see each individual hunt group performance based on the name, not just a general number that doesn't make any sense. The metrics we chose are important, but we're also going to get to see how those hunt groups are trending over the day. And this doesn't have to be day. I could break this down for month. I could break this down for hour. It's just a matter of going into the report and saying, hey, I want hourly results, or I want daily results, or I want monthly results. Again, especially when you're talking about monthly results, those percentages make a lot more sense. So that's it. That's how you can create a very easy hunt group report. But let's take a look a little bit at this report, and let's see. Oh, there's our report right there. I think that's our guy. Yep, that's our guy. All right, so let's take a little bit of report. Remember, I chose to save this report. When I went into history search, I hit that export button and I said, save this report for the future. Now we've got that report. We can do what we need to do on this. If I want to take some fields out, if I want to add detail back in here, I want to schedule this report, we have the ability to do that. So for this guy, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to fine tune it a little bit. So I've got right here, it says ad hoc search because it was just an ad hoc search when we built this. I'm going to change this to all hunt groups. All right. Next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to turn off some fields in here that are maybe a little bit more confusing. I don't need to show the search set criteria being this. Maybe I really don't need the table of contents. So I can always fine tune that and say, hey, you know what? I don't need the table of contents. I don't need to show the cluster. I only got one, and I don't need to show my user restrictions. Those are some things that aren't important. So now I can save this. I've made some general changes. Now, one of the nice new features of Variphy right here is when I go to run this, we're going to take a look at the same report, but with two very different values. So in this report, you can see I've got short duration calls, I've got voicemail call counts, total call duration, and things like that. And you know what? Let's go ahead and change this a little bit because we are going to be running low on time. So let me go ahead and change this guy for a second. I'm going to turn on detail on this report. We're going to take a look at some of the detail. Now you can see in my detail, I've got things like calling party number, original, final called party number, terminating CUCM department. Some of these fields, they're confusing to end users. We're going to run this report in two different formats right here. So I'm going to close out that original one that we had, and I'm going to go ahead and use my system default settings here. All right, we're going to take a look at this report. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take advantage of one of the new features, which is our custom labeling. And I'm going to show you the difference between a standard report using our 11.1.7 with no custom labels or a 12.2 with no custom labels. But then I'm going to go ahead and show you how you can change that using custom labels to make that much more efficient and much easier for your end users to read. So here's that same report. You'll notice I cleaned it up a little bit. I took out some of the headers. I took out some of the search criteria that's a little bit more confusing. I just said all hunt groups. I've got my hunt pilot descriptions here. Same information that I had there before. If I scroll down, we're going to see some detail where we have some of those more confusing numbers, my calling party number. Here's my CUCM hunt pilot description and terminating end user department. So great hunt group report that we have here. Let's go ahead and show what custom labels does. So within my system, I've created a specific label set for hunt groups. And what I've done in this label set is I've actually changed some things specifically around hunt group type reports so they make more sense. I've changed my detail columns. Instead of saying calling party number, it's going to say caller ID. I know these are all inbound calls, so I know they're all coming from caller ID. I've changed some of my other fields like the originating device name. Nobody knows what originating device name means. General managers don't know, so I named it to gateway. And if I don't even want that in the report, I can take it out. The person answering these calls is now going to be named agent instead of terminating CUCM end user full name. So I've made some changes to this custom label set here to make this a little bit more of an efficient report. And now I'm going to give this guy a run, and we're going to take a look at those results. So right when I run this report, and the same thing goes for schedules, I can go ahead and flip this. So now I am using my custom label set. It's no longer using the system defaults. This is also something I can change on my dashboards and widgets, and it's also something that I have the ability to change from a user perspective. So if I'm a general user and I only run hunt group reports, well, I can actually change my user configurations to default to this configuration right here. So I change my label set. I'm going to turn on appendix so I can show you a little bit of what we have. We're still running this report for the previous week, and now we're going to kind of do a little stare and compare. You're going to get to see what a report looks like from the system defaults, as well as what a report looks like from the end user perspective or with new custom labels. So now what we have here is the same exact report, but if we take a look at our values, short duration, medium, long duration calls, for example, well, duration greater than 15 seconds. Or less than 15 seconds. Whoops, I got to fix those. Duration greater than 5 seconds and lower than 5 minutes. Duration greater than 5 minutes. So now we've made some very clear statistics. And anybody looking at this report is going to know exactly what you're seeing. Some of the other things that we changed is I've changed that total call count to calls presented, and I changed my calls sequence count to total calls. This is a much more realistic idea of what's going on because calls presented are exactly that. How many calls hit that hunt group? And that means how many times they got transferred to the same hunt group, how many calls got routed through, back and forth through those hunt groups. And we're going to see that in detail in a second. Now, the other thing that you'll notice I changed here is I also have the ability to change the summary. So rather than hunt pilot description, I've changed this to just hunt pilot. Makes a lot more sense. I've also changed that to calls presented down here. I added my voicemail count. Instead of average ring time, I changed it to AVG ring time. It's just a little bit shorter, and it's a little bit easier to read. Here's my duration counts and things like that. And that same information could be reflected down here throughout your daily statistics. So it's a great way to make a meaningful report for your end users. And we're still filtering this based off that hunt pilot description. Now, one of the things you're also going to notice here and why I turned on detail is I've also have the ability to change the detail columns. So instead of looking at originating device description, I've got gateway. Now, this is a hunt pilot report. So initially, this was the original called party number. That was the name of this field. That doesn't mean a whole lot to end users. So now I'm calling it hunt group number. Answering extension. So here's going to be the extensions of people answering those calls. And as I scroll through here, that makes much more sense. Here's the agent that answered the call instead of terminating end user ID. So it's a great way to be able to just make a report a little bit more efficient for your end users. And now what you have is a great template report. Now this one's built for all hunt pilots, but I can very easily make a copy of this. And maybe instead of building it for all my hunt pilots, I just want to build it for original hunt pilot or a hunt pilot description. So let's take that for an example. So I'm going to go ahead and say starts with, and I'm going to pick on one. I'm going to pick on one that starts with COR. So we're just going to do that. So very easily what I'm going to do, I don't need to summarize these on a hunt pilot description because I'm saying all these calls are for the hunt pilot description. So what I can actually do here is I can summarize this on maybe the department answering those calls. And then also each individual person seeing those calls. So you've got a lot of flexibility. And now with those detail columns, I've basically, by just changing two configurations and running a singular hunt pilot report. And let's go ahead and save this guy. So now it's a brand new report. Let's run this. And now you're going to see those same values. I'm going to use my same configurations here. Run it for the previous week, and now I've taken a report that was for all my hunt groups, gave me a great overview of all my hunt groups, and just by changing 2 or 3 values, I'm now looking at a singular hunt group, how many calls went to that hunt group, how many were there, how many were answered. You'll notice these 2 values are different because calls can roll in and out of hunt groups and talk to multiple people. But I'm also breaking this down by each individual department answering those calls, as well as each individual person answering those calls. So very easily, we've taken a high-level report, copied it, created a very low-level report for a singular hunt group, all focusing on those hunt pilot descriptions rather than having to worry about trying to figure out what an individual hunt pilot was. So, hey, everybody, I really appreciate your time. I'm sorry I'm running us a little bit over. Dan, I'm going to go ahead and back to you, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, Victor. Excellent job. A lot of really good info. I know a lot of people are super stoked about those custom label sets. So happy to see them in reality here. So Vic, I'm going to have you still share your screen here. We've got just about a few questions here that we want to get clarified and answered. So first question that we have is from Will, and Will would like to know where, excuse me, where in the application do you actually set the hunt group description info?
Sure. So the hunt group description itself is not set within Variphy. The hunt group description itself is actually a call manager attribute. So one of the things you're going to notice, and I can kind of show you really quickly here, is that anytime I'm searching for something that has CUCM in the title like this, that's actually a hunt group description. That's actually a call manager attribute that Variphy pulls live. You're never having to worry about coming to Variphy and updating hunt groups, updating first names and last names and departments and things like that. That information gets pulled directly from your call manager.
Thank you. Excellent. Second question we have is coming from Cheryl. And so this is pertaining to the report that you showed. Cheryl really liked the grouping of the hunt group, the description that you showed here. But Cheryl wants to know, can we get those same exact results that was present in the report in a dashboard widget?
You can actually, yeah. So you can do that in a dashboard, and you can also change those custom label sets can be set on each individual widget. So let me pop into a dashboard here, and I may have some with some widgets. But yeah, this is an exact one right here. So this is a hunt group. We're looking at a hunt group, but if I edit this guy, as soon as he finishes loading up for me here, you're going to be able to see that same information, how many calls came in. If I wanted to filter this down to show each just the hunt group, I can absolutely do that. So that same type of report can be broken down by user, can be broken down by hunt group, and I can also apply those label sets directly to the individual widget. In this case, I already have it set up to use that one. I could use its system default, and my buddy Matt's got one created here too, but I don't know what he put in there, so I'm not going to click on it. But yeah, you can absolutely go ahead and do that same information that we have in the dashboard or in the reports as a widget.
Yeah, for Cheryl, just as an additional note, this is the newer or newish grouping summary widget. So that's what Vic is using here.
Yep, that's correct. Thank you.
Yep. And then last question we have is from Mark, just to provide some additional clarity. I know, Vic, you mentioned that there's a lot of calls and special call flow scenarios where people might forward or transfer calls into a hunt group. If it's a direct call into a hunt group, very easy. You're searching by original call party number. But in Mark's case, people are forwarding calls into the hunt group. Mark just wants to know real quick, what column should he be keying off of for that hunt group information for calls forwarded into? I think it was last redirect DN. That might contain the pilot number, because if it's forwarded there, and then the last redirect DN would be actually redirecting to the final call party number or who actually is answering that call. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a good question and something that we deal with a lot, because hunt groups, for lack of a better word, there's nothing simple about a hunt group. You're right. They can come in, they can be answered. That's the end of the call. They can, if they don't get answered in a certain amount of time, they can roll to a different hunt group. So there's a lot of different scenarios. But yeah, last redirect is a great way to be able to key off of those. But also using the cradle to grave scenarios within hunt group is a great way to be able to report really finite results. I know we've got a couple of webinars out there, so I won't jump too much time into it. But if I go ahead and toggle on this cradle to grave guy, what you're going to get to see, let me unsave that guy. What you're going to get to see here is a whole nother layer of information that you can actually build more summary results off of. So not just focusing on that last redirect DN, but being able to say, hey, I want to see how many calls came into this hunt group and ended up rolling to my UCCX, or ended up rolling, I didn't turn detail on, but yeah, or ended up rolling into another hunt group, or let's say how many went into a queue, or how many reached, maybe the hunt group maxed out and there was nobody available. Those are all different fields that you can filter off of using things like half of codes, last redirect codes, but there's a lot of flexibility within Variphy, and we didn't even get into the hunt group and cradle to grave search sets. But you would see there's a lot of information that we could pull back there to be able to go ahead and report the intricacies of what's actually taking place in those hunt groups.
Yeah, excellent, Victor. I know you stated it perfectly. There is no easy thing about hunt groups. I know Cisco puts the relative information in numerous different types of fields where you really need to look at detail and cradle grave to get a good idea of the call flow. But yeah, absolutely correct on that. All right. Those are all the questions we have at this time. I know we are running a few minutes behind. I apologize about that, guys. But now it's the time that we've all been waiting for. Let me go ahead and share out my screen. The winner of today's session. Let's see here. All right, sharing screen now. All right, after Q&A, the winner for today's $50 Amazon gift card is Tony Capo. Thank you, Tony, for joining us today. We'll have your account manager reach out to you shortly after this webinar to get that gift card over to you.
Woo.
So just
Congratulations, Tony.
Absolutely. Just to wrap up for today, briefly want to announce that our much anticipated 12.2.1 is now generally available, GA release. So everyone should be able to download that. And if you need assistance upgrading to that current release, let us know at support@variphy.com. We'll assist you in that. Just as a recap, some things that are included in there: CUCM and CCX report repository, the custom labels that Victor just discussed for both CDR and CCX based statistics, time interval reporting for CCX data, and then finally international support for DID management digits.
And that hunt pilot description, Dan, that's new to 12.2.
Yeah.
So that's one of those. That's one of those things that's in there too.
How can I forget?
That in an old version.
Thank you for the reminder.
Of course, absolutely.
And then just as another point of reference here, our weekly Wednesday webinars. Next week's topic, November 11th, will be on reporting on Unity options or input options within Unity, based all off of CDR. And yours truly, myself, and Mike Stratton, aka Magic Mike, will be hosting that session. So if you haven't, please register and we'll join us again next week. So once again, I want to thank everyone for joining today. Go out, be safe, and please be nice to one another. Thanks. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.